Center after an earlier jetliner, apparently hijacked by from American Airlines. Here is the first of those towers coming down. This is the one that was actually hit by the second plane. It was hit lower. There was more weight on those steel girders that had been damaged. And here comes the second tower, the tower with the signature television antenna on top, both of them simply imploding in on themselves. Our Shepard Smith has a view of much of what's going on. He is on a rooftop in Manhattan. Shepard, what can you tell us? Shepard Smith is with us. Shepard,
we are on 47th Street, high above the Fox News headquarters. 47th Street, between 7th Avenue or Broadway and 6th Avenue, on a spectacular day in Manhattan. And right over my right shoulder is the spot where the World Trade Center stood just a couple of hours ago. Our engineer, Peter Blanchard-Forty, was standing here on top of this building, arranging to have this live broadcast set up when the World Trade Center just started to collapse. Peter, which side went first?
The east side went first, the one closest to the Verizon building side, and that went about a little over a half hour ago, and the second one followed about 15 minutes later.
What was going through your mind?
Just all the people. It's all the people. It was unreal. I don't know how to describe it. So we were setting up for the camera shot, and just to see it there 1 minute and then gone the next, you can't describe it.
Well, I was personally uptown on the Upper East Side of Manhattan at just about 96th and 3rd Street when the call came out, and probably took 30 minutes to get ready, and then began what is a very familiar trip from the Upper East Side to Midtown Manhattan, coming down 5th Avenue, straddling Central Park, on what is an absolutely spectacular fall day in Manhattan. And there was a pall over this city like you really cannot imagine. When coming down 5th Avenue, the tunnels which lead you through Central Park from the east side to the west side of Upper Manhattan were closed. There were police officers on streets. There were women on street corners trying to get phone calls out, and men seated on benches crying. It was an unthinkable experience. And from this location, you can see almost all of Lower Manhattan, and certainly we've gotten reports of what it has been like down there over the past couple of hours. Certainly the scenes of carnage, something not witnessed in the United States history. And this will be a very long and difficult day, and the pictures to come will be overwhelming. But the important thing to remember, I believe, as a nation, is for us all to take a deep breath and remember the person next to you, and don't allow yourself to fall into the abyss which it appears those two buildings have. The New York City Fire Department and police departments are all on full alert. All fire department personnel in all 5 boroughs have been ordered to report to their firehouses. It is my understanding that all the bridges and tunnels in the city are closed, that there is no one allowed inside and out. This building on which I'm standing is the headquarters of the News Corporation, but houses literally thousands of workers on 45 stories. Initially, in the initial confusion, no one knew quite what to do, but now in this building, and I'm quite confident in skyscrapers across Manhattan, security is at the door. No one is allowed in or out without an ID. Now anyone who leaves is not allowed back in, except of course for news personnel. And the main thing that's being urged everywhere you go is calm, that this is a time to remain calm. We are hit with a national crisis unprecedented. And the word from people on the street, from the mayor of New York City and others is, it's time to put your arms around a neighbor, take a deep breath, and try to get through this. There are certainly the inevitable concerns of what will happen in this city in the days to come. Mayor Giuliani has an enormous police force of more than 40,000. The city is equipped, we have always been told, to handle any level of disaster, and certainly New York's finest and New York's bravest will do their dead level best to make sure that this city remains as calm as is humanly possible. The Empire State Building in the foreground here, as you can see, and it's my understanding that in the moments after the first collision happened, the Empire State Building was put on alert. I was listening to a radio reporter from 1010 Winds, a local radio station, which had dispatched a reporter there saying that there was an orderly exodus going on. I can tell you that for the thousands who are in this building, the exodus was orderly. The drive through the streets, an eerie calm, tears on avenues and streets as I made my way here. People, some of them wandering in front of buildings. At St. Patrick's Cathedral in the heart of Midtown, where you turn to come to this building, there were hundreds of people out front, some on their knees at the front of that building, saying prayers for the no doubt thousands who were in those buildings and in that area when the two jets crashed into them. Now back to you downstairs in the studio.
All right, Shepard Smith with our rooftop view here from Midtown Manhattan. Again, to recap, the Twin Towers gone now, virtually obliterated after they were struck by two jetliners, one of them apparently an American Airlines flight from Boston to Los Angeles that was hijacked earlier today. And Washington under attack as well, a U.S. airplane crashing just outside the wall of the Pentagon. Our David Schuster is there and has an update. You can still see the smoke pouring from the building. David?
Well, that's right, John. And we're actually, our office is on the north side of the Pentagon, and even over here, despite how vast this building is, you can now actually see the smoke in all the hallways, and we can feel it in our office. The eyewitnesses are telling us that at approximately 9:40 this morning, a U.S. airplane was headed, it seemed, towards National Airport, which is just a couple of miles away from the Pentagon, when it then apparently veered, flew too low, and crashed into the south wall by the helipad. The helipad is sort of a helicopter landing pad that is used for the Secretary of Defense and military leaders when they travel sometimes in and out of the Pentagon. And apparently on that side, eyewitnesses who were on Highway 110 and 395, which have a great vantage point of that side of the Pentagon, reported a huge ball of fire and smoke billowing out. I was in a taxi cab on 110 when all of a sudden you could see thick black smoke filling the air over Arlington National Cemetery, and as we got up close, fire trucks were screaming towards the Pentagon. The building was somewhat chaotic. There was an evacuation. Officials were, military leaders of all the services were heading out of the Pentagon. There were concerns about whether there was discussion among military leaders about whether to conduct a full-scale evacuation, where to bring the fire trucks. At our office here at the Pentagon, and also cell phone lines in the entire area were not working. It was impossible to get a cell phone. When we arrived here, we started getting reports from people inside the Pentagon of on the south side, on the outer ring, and remember there are 5 or 6 different rings of offices at the Pentagon, of a ball of fire, of a large explosion approximately 9:40. At first, there were some conflicting accounts about whether an airplane was actually involved, because a lot of people in the Pentagon did not hear an airplane flying overhead. But then witnesses outside of the Pentagon who had a clear vantage point of the helipad described a silver and red U.S. airplane, according to the eyewitnesses, described as a 737 that flew too low and crashed into the side. Counterintelligence sources are confirming to Fox News that it was a commercial aircraft that was apparently hijacked and flown into the Pentagon. The damage, I suppose, could have been a little bit worse if it had scored a direct hit or it hit more in the center of the Pentagon, and it is a vast building with 23,000 employees. And while most of those employees have been evacuated, the National Military Command Center, which is in a bunker in the basement of the center of the Pentagon, is still in operation. That is the key office here at the Pentagon as far as coordinating any potential military response. Our producer, Chris Wright, who has been roaming the halls of the Pentagon, said that offices all over the place are closed, even at the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Some key personnel there are not at their locations. Even some of the guards have left, but we can assume that at the National Military Command Center, which is a very secure part of the building, they are still in operation, and perhaps a testament to how big the Pentagon is and how strong it is. The people on this side of the Pentagon said they simply did not hear or see anything at 9:40 when the plane apparently crashed into the south side. But at this point, it's pretty evident what's going on. You can hear the sirens in the hallway. The offices, even on this side of the building, are starting to fill with smoke. And in fact, I'm going to stick the phone out the window and see if you can hear the warning. Hold on one second, see if I can drag the phone out there. Hold on one sec. Okay, so that's the noise you're hearing inside the Pentagon as my producer Chris Wright stuck the phone out into the hallway, and you can actually you can see the smoke just filling the air of the hallways here at the Pentagon. Back to you.
All right, David Schuster at the Pentagon, thanks very much. Los Angeles is on a state of tactical alert. San Francisco, pretty much the same thing. In Virginia, Navy installations are under an increased security condition called Threat Con Charlie. In New Jersey, once again, the bridges and tunnels into Manhattan are closed. Again, to recap, let's take a look at what you are seeing there in the live pictures on your screen. The World Trade Center is now essentially gone. The Twin Towers were struck earlier this morning in coordinated attacks. We had a report of a jetliner smashing into the first tower. Here comes a replay video of a second plane that smashed into the second tower about midway shortly after 9 a.m. this morning Eastern Time. That tremendous fireball, you can imagine, triggered a fire inside the building that apparently weakened the structural elements to the point that the upper level of the building simply could not stand. It collapsed, and there again, this is a replay of the second plane smashing into the World Trade Center. It happened as we were on the air live shortly after 9 o'clock this morning Eastern Time. Now, both towers went up in flames, and there was clearly a tremendous loss of life, but then came the catastrophic collapse. This the second collapse of the tower that was actually struck by the first plane. All right, I'm told that that is the first collapse, but no, that was the tower with the television tower on top was the second one to go down. You can see the glass, the debris raining down, and imagine, folks, that firefighters and police officers were all around the base of that building trying to evacuate people as it came down. I can't think of a more catastrophic collapse. On top of that, we just heard from David Schuster, the Pentagon has been under attack. American Airlines is going to be holding a press conference about 25 minutes from now in Dallas to talk about one of the planes that was apparently involved in this World Trade Center collapse. We believe, well, in fact, American Airlines has told us that their Flight 11 from Boston to Los Angeles was hijacked this morning, and we believe that the hijackers somehow then commandeered the cockpit controls and flew that American Airlines plane into the World Trade Center. That would probably be, we don't have confirmation, but probably be the first one that hit.
I think, John, if I can interrupt just, I think investigators now are probably looking to see how the hijackers in this coordinated attack were able to take over the controls. Did they shoot the pilots and then jump in the seats? What happened? Osama bin Laden, sources have told me, has had pilots on his payroll. We have 3 pilots that were accused of being conspirators in the East African Embassy bombing trial here in New York City. So you certainly have perhaps investigators looking at a base of operation out of Boston and perhaps out of Pittsburgh, since you have a U.S. airplane into the Pentagon, which their main hub is Pittsburgh, and another crash outside of Pittsburgh.
Bill Daley, a former investigator for the FBI, has been good enough to stay with us. Bill, a couple of brief thoughts.
Yeah, John, first of all, the broad base in which these attacks took place took a lot of coordination. As Eric just mentioned, there may have been some involvement of groups like Osama bin Laden or others. I would go on to say that as a result of the effort it took to take these, have these incidents take place, is that we will find the people responsible, is that the trail will be hot, we will go after them, but everyone needs to realize, a state of calm, needs to come over the country and realize we're in control. These are incidents that have happened, we're containing those, and the government and the people will go on.
And America still stands. Let's go to our man in America's capital, Britt Hume, with some new information. Britt?
Just a few things, John. One is, as you might imagine, there is a stupendous traffic jam developing in the Washington area right now, with all these buildings being evacuated and people heading home. There was a report, remember we reported earlier that the bomb squad had been sent over to Union Station, and apparently what that was about was what appeared to them to be an unexploded bomb over there. Now we're going to be in for a lot of this, and we need to keep our eyes open here to take things with a grain of salt. We haven't had a further report on whether there's been anything more to that than just why they went over there, but that's what it was. In addition, the American Muslim Political Coordination Council, which is a function of the Council on American Islamic Relations, that's a group located here in Washington, has released a statement condemning the apparent terrorist attack, saying, quote, American Muslims utterly condemn what are apparently vicious and cowardly acts of terrorism against innocent civilians, join with all Americans in calling for the swift apprehension and punishment of the perpetrators. No political cause, it says, could ever be assisted by such immoral acts. In addition, John, there was there was a report, I should say, kicking around on the air of an attack on Camp David, the presidential retreat north of Washington.